I walked into my own surprise, part smiling, confused, flattered, until I realized something that knocked the air right out of me. It wasn't even for me. There were balloons, music, hugs, and a cake with gold trim. People were cheering, and for maybe 30 seconds, I actually believed I mattered. But then I saw the sash on my sister's dress, the ring balloon behind her chair, the gifts wrapped in silver hearts. And just like that, I knew. They didn't throw a party for me. They threw it for her. And they used me as the excuse to make it look fair. The whole thing started a few days earlier when my mom texted me, "Be at the house Saturday by 5 p.m. We're having a little family dinner to celebrate you finishing school." I just graduated with a degree in architecture. I took longer than most work nights, switched majors, restarted once during the pandemic, but I finally did it. I didn't expect a parade, but when I got that text, it felt good. Like for once, I wouldn't be overlooked. I arrived at the house wearing a polo and jeans, with a small smile and zero expectations beyond burgers, and maybe a, "We're proud of you." I opened the side gate and boom 20. 30 people jumped out from behind the backyard shed and shouted, "Surprise!" I laughed. Genuinely. There were fairy lights strung through the trees, a rented tent with white chairs, coolers full of drinks, and a giant 3-layer cake sitting under a sign that read, "We're so proud of you." And for a moment, I thought, damn, they actually did it. They threw me a party. But the longer I stood there, the more details started sticking out like sore thumbs. That banneret didn't have my name on it. The cake covered in white frosting and gold glitter looked more like it belonged at a wedding than a graduation. And then there was Lindsay, my younger sister. She walked out of the house wearing a white summer dress and a sash that said, "She said yes." There was a giant diamond ring balloon floating behind her. Everyone turned to her like gravity itself had shifted in her direction. And suddenly I was invisible again. I walked over to my dad and asked, "Wait, is this Lindsay's engagement party?" He chuckled and patted my back. "It's for both of you. You graduated. She got engaged, double reason to celebrate." I nodded, but my chest started sinking. Because nothing, literally nothing in that backyard said anything about me. Not the decorations, not the setup, not the flow of conversation. It was all about her. The cake said love always wins. The toast my dad gave, 5 minutes long, talked about how proud he was of Lindsay, how Avantha fiance was like a son already, how she was always destined to find something special. At the very end, he said, "Oh, and our son Alex graduated from college, which is great too. Congrats, bud." That was it. That was my moment. I looked around. No one clapped for me. No one asked what my plans were next. My girlfriend Emily came over and squeezed my hand. She leaned in and whispered, "They really did this to you again, huh?" I nodded, because it wasn't the first time. It's always been like this. Lindsay was the emotional one, the dramatic one, the one who made everything a scene and somehow always got what she wanted. I was the steady one, the responsible one, the one who was told to wait, to understand, to be patient while she spiraled and was forgiven over and over again. I told myself this wasn't the time to make it about me. It's still family. Still people who took time to show up. So I played along, smiled, took pictures, ate the damn cake. But it kept happening. My mom brought out a gift box wrapped in silver foil and handed it to Lindsay. "Open it now," she said. Inside was a set of personalized champagne flutes with her and Evan's names etched in gold. People cheered. I clapped too, quietly. Then my aunt came up to me and said, "Aren't you just thrilled for your sister? This must be such a proud day for you." I smiled and said, "Yeah, really proud." And she walked away without asking a single thing about me or my graduation. I turned to Emily and said, "You know what? Let's take a photo. Something, anything. Just to remember we were actually here." We walked over to the photo booth setup. Of course, it was all wedding-themed rose petals, hearts, a chalkboard that said, "Future Mr. and Mrs." We were about to pose when my mom ran over and said, hold on. Let Lindsay and Evan go first." So we stepped aside, and I watched. I watched my sister and her fiancé take picture after picture while people clapped and cheered, like they were celebrities. Emily leaned over and said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I don't know what's worse, the fact that this hurts, or the fact that I saw it coming." After that photo booth moment, I kind of just checked out. I smiled when someone looked my way, nodded when someone said something polite, but inside, I wasn't really there anymore. It felt like I was floating above the whole party, watching it from somewhere else. And the weird part? Nobody seemed to notice. I mean, I don't think anyone at that party besides Emily actually thought, hey, maybe Alex isn't enjoying this. They were too busy passing champagne around, taking selfies with Lindsay, clapping for every story Evan told about how he proposed. It was like I'd been invited to someone else's movie, and they stuck my name in the credits at the last second to make it seem like I had a role. I remember grabbing a soda from the cooler and standing by the edge of the yard, watching my cousin's kids run around and thinking, is this it? Is this how it always goes? Like no matter what I do, how hard I try, how many years I keep my head down and grind, she'll always win just by showing up with a ring and a story. And look, I'm not bitter about people getting celebrated. I'm not that guy. Lindsay deserves happiness. I didn't hate her for being engaged. I hated how my family used my graduation, something I'd worked damn hard for, as a convenient side dish to her fairy tale. I hated how they didn't even tell me. Didn't say, hey, we're combining your event with hers. Didn't ask. Just let me walk in blind so I could be blindsided. And they probably didn't think twice about it. That's what messed me up the most. I kept playing the moment over and over in my head. That text from my mom, we're having a little family dinner to celebrate you finishing school. Not, we're throwing an engagement party for your sister, and we'll mention you somewhere in between cake and champagne. That was a conscious choice. They chose not to tell me. I guess they assumed I'd go along with it. And they were right. I did. I stood there and smiled, took pictures, ate cake, said thank you when people offered empty congratulations. But it wasn't real. None of it. And then came the final straw. I was sitting near the fire pit, trying to kill time until it felt appropriate to leave without being called rude, when my mom walked over with a black envelope in her hand. She handed it to me and said, almost forgot. This is for you. I opened it. Inside was a card. On the front, it said, you did it, in silver letters. Inside was a handwritten note. We're so proud of everything you've accomplished. Can't wait to see where life takes you next. Love, Mom and Dad. Folded into the card was a $50 Amazon gift card. I just stared at it. $50. For 5 years of working full-time while studying, paying for my own classes, skipping vacations, saying no to everything just to finish school. $50 and a generic note that might as well have been copied from a graduation aisle at Target. Meanwhile, Lindsay had a gift table that looked like a bridal registry exploded. Someone gave her luggage with her initials embroidered. My aunt gifted her a framed map of all the places she and Evan planned to honeymoon. My parents gave her a check. I know that because I saw her open it and mouth the words, oh my God, thank you. She hugged them both like they'd just paid off her future. And I got a gift card. You know what? I'm not even mad about the money. It's not about that. It's about how obvious it was that I was never the point. That even when I should have had a moment, just one moment, they managed to fold me into someone else's celebration so neatly that no one would ever notice I wasn't being celebrated at all. I handed the envelope to Emily and said, you want anything from Amazon? She laughed, but not because it was funny. She laughed because she didn't know what else to do. We decided to leave shortly after. I told my parents we had dinner plans, which we didn't, but I needed an excuse. My mom gave me a quick hug and said, thanks for being here. You made today so special. I smiled and said, sure. On the drive home, Emily was quiet. She kept glancing at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't want to poke the wound. Finally, she said, do you want to talk about it? I said, number not yet. I didn't need to talk. I needed to process. I needed to sit with the reality that no matter how old I got, no matter what I achieved, I was still the background character in my own family's story. And the worst part? I knew it wouldn't change. Not unless I did something about it. Over the next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about the party. Not just about what happened, but about how normal it felt. That's what really got me. The way nobody, not even for a second, thought, hey, this might hurt Alex. It was just accepted, expected, routine. And I kept asking myself why I went along with it. Why I didn't say anything. Why I smiled and nodded and played my part. But the truth is, I'd been playing that part my whole life. Growing up, Lindsay always got the big moments. First recital? Huge deal. I made the honor roll? Quiet nod. She failed her driver's test? Everyone comforted her. I passed with flying colors? Good, now drive your sister around. It was little things. Always little things. Until the pattern became so familiar that it felt like breathing. And I started believing it. Believing that maybe I didn't deserve the spotlight. That maybe being in the background was where I belonged. But after that party, something shifted. I couldn't unsee it anymore. I couldn't pretend it didn't sting. And I didn't want to keep swallowing it just to keep the peace. A few days later, I called my mom. I didn't plan to unload. I just wanted to ask a question. I said, hey, can I ask you something kind of weird? She said, of course, honey. What's up? I said, when you planned the party, did you originally plan it for me? Or was it always for Lindsay? There was a pause. Not long, but long enough. Then she said, "Well, it started as something for you, but then your sister got engaged and everything just sort of came together. It made sense to combine it. That way the whole family could be there for both of you." I said, "But you didn't tell me." She sighed. "We didn't think it mattered." Those 4 words. We didn't think it mattered. That's when I realized they hadn't just failed to consider my feelings, they'd made a choice. A clear, conscious choice that I wouldn't care. Or that if I did, I'd get over it. Because that's what I always did. I ended the call quickly, said I had another meeting, hung up, and just sat there, staring at the wall. Emily came over that night. She brought food and sat next to me in silence for a while, which was exactly what I needed. At some point, I said, "Do you ever feel like your family only loves you for the version of you that doesn't ask for anything?" She didn't say anything right away. Then she nodded and said, "Yeah, I do." That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. I wasn't being dramatic. I wasn't selfish or ungrateful. I was just tired. Tired of being the good one because it meant being the forgotten one. A week went by. I didn't talk to my parents much. We texted once or twice. Polite stuff, nothing deep. Then one morning I woke up to a message from my dad. It said, "Your mom said you're upset. I don't really understand what the big deal is, but if you want to talk, let me know. No apology. No curiosity, just confusion." I stared at it for a long time. Then I replied, "I think I need some space for now." He never responded, and that silence said more than any words ever could. The next weekend was Father's Day. Usually we'd go over for dinner, bring a bottle of wine, talk about sports, pretend things were fine. This year, I didn't go. I sent a card. A simple one. It said, "Hope you enjoy your day." No joke inside. No heartfelt message. Just a card. My mom texted later that night, "Everyone missed you." And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about that. I didn't owe them presents just to keep the illusion alive. I didn't owe them silence so they could stay comfortable. What I owed was honesty. With them. But mostly, with myself. A couple weeks went by after that, and the silence between me and my parents just kind of settled. Not in a dramatic way. No big fight. No shouting. Just this quiet understanding that I'd stepped back, and they weren't exactly rushing to pull me back in. I thought about texting. I thought about writing a long email, laying it all out. The years of feeling overlooked, the constant comparisons, the way they didn't even try to make space for me at my own party. But I didn't. Because I realized something. I didn't need them to get it. I needed to stop trying to make them get it. I needed to stop bending myself into something smaller just to be tolerable to them. I spent so much of my life making peace with crumbs and calling it love. But now? I was done with crumbs. I started showing up for myself more, took the job search seriously, landed a full-time role with decent pay, remote work, and a team that actually respected me. Emily and I moved in together. We found a little apartment on the edge of the city, nothing fancy, but it had great light, and for the first time in years, I could decorate a space and know nobody was going to repurpose it for someone else's celebration. We hosted our first little get-together, a few close friends, takeout pizza, some music, no speeches, and about halfway through the night, one of my friends raised a glass and said, "By the way, congrats on the new job, man. That's huge." And I didn't even know how to respond at first. Not because I was shy, but because I wasn't used to that someone seeing me, out loud, without needing a second reason. I think that's when it hit me. I spent so long waiting for my parents to make room for me, I forgot I could build my own room somewhere else. That party, they didn't throw it for me. And maybe they never would have. But that didn't mean I wasn't worth celebrating. It just meant I was in the wrong audience. Months passed. My mom reached out here and there, sent a photo of Lindsay trying on dresses. A reminder about a cousin's birthday. My dad texted once, "Hope the new job's treating you all right." That was it. No deep talk, no apology, no accountability. Just surface-level updates, like we were distant relatives sharing the same last name. And honestly, I was okay with that. Because I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Clear about who I was, what I needed, and what I would no longer tolerate. I still love my family. That part never goes away. But love without boundaries isn't love. It's compliance. And I've complied enough. Sometimes I still think about that moment walking into the backyard, hearing surprise, and letting myself believe for just a second that it was finally about me. And you know what? I don't regret feeling that. I don't regret hoping. Because that moment taught me what I want. Not fake recognition, not secondhand applause, but real, honest presence. The kind that doesn't need a reason. The kind that doesn't require you to shrink so someone else can shine. And now, I throw my own parties. I choose who gets invited. And I never ever forget to write my own name on the cake.